welcome Robert Kahne to Kernels of Truth. Let me tell the folks out there a little bit about you. Robert Kahne and his co-host Jasmine Smith have been producing a podcast called My Old Kentucky Podcast since 2016. It's a show that focuses on mostly local and some national political current events, but it's really bluegrass focused. It's the show is self-proclaimed progressive media, but Connie and Smith do the diligence, researching the topics they discuss and presenting their content based on fact-checked sources. Most shows include a notable guest interview from a friend of the show, like Representative Attica Scott, to Governor Andy Beshear, and many, many others. My Old Kentucky podcast can be heard on most podcast platforms and are archived on Forward Kentucky's website. There's also more information at myoldkentuckypodcast.com that serves as the hub to their platforms and social media. And if I could just take a second, Robert, as Kit alluded, we've only been in Kentucky for just under 3 years. But I tell you, when we first drove down, I said, there's got to be some podcast out there that can sort of get me up to speed on what's going on in Kentucky politics. And it only took a single Google search to pop up My Old Kentucky Podcast. And I've been a loyal listener ever since. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being around and existing.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate those really kind words. Yeah, I'm watching all of this stuff and hearing your introduction, and it's really cool to think about, how long the show's been going on and all the things that we've done. I could get you some better pictures probably, but that's all right. We look good. We look good. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh yes, it's what an honor and pleasure. So, we always start out, as you've heard, we ask our guests, what does your protest sign say today? So if you have a protest sign, so to speak, what's it say?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit, and I think my sign would say, Kentucky, there's nothing stopping us. Because I really believe that, the only thing that stands in the way of us having, more civil rights for marginalized people, a better pre-K system, better infrastructure, a better unemployment system, it's just ourselves. And, if we wanted to, we could have all of those things. And there's nothing standing in our way, and we could do all of those things if we wanted to.
Right on. Couldn't agree more. So let me, I guess, start off with the first question here for you. And it's really about the medium itself. My Old Kentucky podcast goes into depth in a conversational way and is very informative and factually correct. But why pick the podcast medium itself? And how did you get into that specifically? And were you a journalism person, or what's that story?
Yes, it is such an interesting thing, right? The whole podcast medium and kind of how it's changed and grown over the years. I actually started doing podcasting before My Old Kentucky Podcast, back in the early part of the 2010s, and I think actually back in like 2009. I had a movie podcast that grew out of a radio show that I did at UK when I was in Lexington. And we really liked doing that, but we left school and we were trying to find a place to put it, and we put it on a small micro station here in Louisville. And we like producing audio. The guy that I was doing with actually left to started a career in the film industry, and I was kind of left hanging. And so I was thinking, well, what else am I really interested in? And my background's in public policy. That's what I was doing at UK. I have a grad degree in public policy from the University of Kentucky. And I got together with my good friend Jasmine, who was at that time finishing up law school. And, we made a politics podcast about politics in Kentucky because it was kind of an unfilled niche at the time. There's a bunch of other people who've kind of come in and done some different stuff. And we're really glad to have, Progress Kentucky and the Kernels of Truth like on the scene now. So, that's really cool to have you guys with us. But yeah, it was a very unfilled niche back in, 2016 when we started it. So, we really enjoy doing it. We like to do the work, and we hope it provides a service. So that's how it all came together for us.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, very cool, and it certainly provides a service for me. Hey, Kimberly, what do you think? Do you have a question?
I sure do, for Mr. Connie. Are there any podcasters, wink, wink, or journalists that you hear and go, man, I wish we could be like that? Or are there any type of heroes that you look up to that you think of?
Well, in the podcasting medium, it's so interesting because there's so many different kinds of shows, and I think my favorite podcasts are podcasts where people have like a longstanding relationship with the partners on the show, where you can kind of really get to know how the different people feed off of each other. And there's a lot of podcasts that are like that I really enjoy. There's one it's a ringer podcast called The Watch, and it's mostly about pop culture, but these two guys have been friends with each other since they were in middle school or whatever, and they just kind of get on and talk about TV or whatever. And half of the show is mostly just about them talking to each other, and I think that's really cool. And there's I really think the 538 podcast does a really good job of this, where you can really understand the dynamics and the relationships between the different people on the show. And I think that people really gravitate towards that. I think, at the core of it, podcasting is almost about like having a relationship with the people on the screen, or in your ears, not on the screen. I guess some of them have live, video. We don't do a very good job of self-promotion, but yeah, we do. I don't know, my heroes, I don't really, heroes will only disappoint you. So I don't have too many of those. So I do have a lot of people I look up to, a lot of people who we do try to, we have an idea about what kind of show we want to do because of other shows that we listen to. It is kind of another thing that's kind of interesting is, you have different sorts of things that fill different niches where, you have like Pod Save America, which is kind of more of an activist podcast, more along the lines of what you guys do, where you're talking more specifically from an advocacy standpoint. And then you have like something like the 538 podcast, which is maybe a little bit more about, informing people about what's going on around them. That's more from a journalistic standpoint. And we kind of like try to do all of that at once for a while. And I don't know where we kind of fall on that spectrum these days, but maybe we're just ourselves. And now we're, almost 6 years into it, which is just kind of crazy to think about, or I guess 5 years into it, which is kind of crazy to think about. So hopefully we've created our own voice enough that people know what we're about when they turn our show on. Oh, Kimberly, I have a question for you. Whenever you got your AKA mask on, do you see other ladies with AKA masks to know like when to ski weave them? Is that like what you do whenever you see other people doing it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Pinkies to the sky always. Yeah. and I know that it was just a slight oversight. I understand, Mr. Kahne, but I know that Kernels of Truth is one of his favorite podcasts.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. I'm very happy to have you guys on the scene. Very cool to listen to you guys, to have a different voice around here. You got a ways to go to catch up with us in terms of like the amount of shows that you've done, but you'll get there. You'll get there.
At this rate,
I love him. I do.
Right? Hey, Samantha G, what do you think? You got a question?
I do. And so as a progressive in a very red state, we just have a lot of particular challenges. So what issues are really important to you that you're hoping to change?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I am a progressive in a red state, but in another way to think about it too is I live in Louisville. I'm an urban person in a very rural state, which is just as much of a divider as anything else. And I do think like the core thing that I think really faces Kentucky in terms of its problems right now are its divisions between the different types of people, and you can see our politics really do break down both in, even more than a conservative liberal skew. It is kind of an urban rural split with people who live in a certain type of way don't really understand or come to appreciate the life experiences of people in the other way of living life. So that's kind of one of the things that I've really been thinking about lately is ways that we can bridge that divide. And once you even get beyond that too, Kentucky is such a diverse place, and you have, Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky, and even Appalachia, you've got Northern Appalachia, places like Ashland and to some extent like Pikeville, and then you have like Southern Appalachia, places like Somerset and Letcher County, Whitesburg, and then you've got, of course, Northern Kentucky, you've got South Central Kentucky, Bowling Green, you got Western Kentucky, and even those two places have their own regional identities. And Henderson and Paducah are both Western Kentucky, but they're very different types of places. If you told somebody in Paducah that I thought Henderson was in Western Kentucky, they might get mad at me. So that's there are just so many different ways that we divide Kentucky up. And I was just doing it right there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we face. Now, there's a lot of really serious issues that we face. But as Nate mentioned, we have these bills that we hope can pass. And some of them are just the lowest of hanging fruits. Let's take free money and spend it. Like, come on, guys, let's get it together. Like, why can't we do that? And of course, we're probably not going to. I mean, let's just be honest about it. We're probably not gonna. And that is the world that we face right now. When we talk about wanting to create a post-coal economy, to have what we called like a soft landing for coal. I've been talking about these issues for almost a decade. I mean, I was really active in the Green Thumb Club when I was at UK to really push towards moving beyond coal back in like 2009, and that was just a totally different world. And to think that we're still fighting these fights in some ways is just wild. I thought your thing about coal mining was really great. I don't call them friends of coal. I call them the friends of the coal mine owners, which is really what they are. Those people sell out the miners at the shortest, as soon as they possibly can. And the people who work in that industry are, of course, some of the bravest and most, they do what they have to feed their families. And I don't think that needs to go overlooked in the slightest. And the thing the way that industry, takes advantage of people's livelihoods and enriches some at the expense of the lives of many other people is really tragic. So I was really glad that you brought that to light earlier in the show.